Welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMALOTN. This week, we're going over UFC Vegas 63, headlined by a featherweight matchup between Calvin Kattar and Arnold Allen. The weigh-ins just wrapped up at about a half hour ago. A couple guys had us waiting. I believe there was only one official weight miss on the entire card. A couple guys looking a little bit sucked, a little bit dry. But what do you expect? They're cutting weight for the last 24 hours or so. But we'll see if me or my guest could have spotted anything that might have maybe swayed our pick a little bit, or if we're standing firm with the selections that we made earlier this week as well. So without further ado, let me bring in my guest that I'm going to be having for the show. First time on the show, but I know he's been deserving it for a while now. The guy's been grinding the YouTube game as well, and he's been creating a fan base of his own. I can't wait to introduce him to my own fan base now, and hopefully you guys can jump onto his as well. We got my guy Patrick from Addicted2Combat. You guys can follow him at Combat Addict1 on Twitter. Patrick, what is going on, my dog?
Man, good to finally break down fights with you, man. I've been watching your show for a while, ever since the other channel when you were doing panels with Bleed and Guru and
shout out
Clint
to
even. Of course, your boy CJ as well. Yeah, great time. So I've been following your work for a while, man, and always a big fan. So let's get into it, man.
Hell yeah, man. I was very happy to see you in the live chat and all that stuff and be like, you know what, this guy fucking deserves it. And I'm glad to have finally lined something up with you here. But before we actually break down the fights, I want to get your perspective from a fan's point of view, because that's what we all started off as, right? We didn't just jump into the MMA world as degenerate gamblers that we are now, but obviously you are a fan. So from a fan's perspective, what fight are you looking forward to most on this card? What are you thinking?
Obviously, whenever Calvin Kattar gets into a 5-round featherweight bout, man, it's always fun. It's been fireworks every time he's done it so far. Otherwise, the Phil Hawes Roman Dolidze fight, I think I'm really into that one too. That's a fight that I think could go either way, and we'll definitely break into that one in some detail. But that's a fight at middleweight I like. Two savages there, and it's got the potential to be exciting.
I'm very excited to hear your thoughts on that one, because honestly, that is the one that I can like least get a side on that I'm very much convicted about. So I'm hoping that you have something that the fans can go off here. Shout out to my guy SD Crusader saying RIP odds. Yes, odds.com was the place to be.
Great times.
Especially Friday nights. Me, Cody, Bleed, and Prediction Guru obviously coming together every 9 p.m. on fight week. So it was a awesome time. Obviously the Propping You Up show was started over there as well. I'll always keep them in my thoughts. All right, let's get right into the card, Patrick. We're gonna alternate in terms of who starts it off. I'll kick off this first one that we got. It's between Christian Rodriguez, who was one of the guys that made us wait all the way pretty much until the end. He weighs in at 136 pounds. He needed the box of shame, but that's kind of been the storyline of his career, especially when he competed on the Contender Series last season or 2 seasons ago now. And he missed weight, but he won his fight. And Data was like, you got to make weight unless your name is Jake Hadley. You got to make weight when you fight on the Contender Series, otherwise you're not going to get a contract. He goes out there, gets another win, eventually gets called back to the UFC for a tough debut. But on the flip side of his opponent, we got Joshua Weems, former Contender Series alum as well. He's coming in at plus 310, minus 380 on Christian Rodriguez. I've been pumped about Christian since he made the jump here, man. He obviously had a very tough out in his UFC debut, coming in on short notice, up a weight class against a beast like JSP Jonathan Pierce. Came up short that night, but man, was he fighting like he needed to win that fight. He made it very difficult for Jonathan Pierce to really establish much legitimate control. Like statistics say he controlled that fight for 11 minutes. He looks like he was struggling every minute of that fight to control that fight, because Christian was very active in terms of getting back to his feet, getting back into more comfortable positions for himself. But where he does his best work, you see in the striking count, especially in that fight, right? He outstruck GSP in terms of significant strikes because he is that good of a striker. Like, he's very good with his combinations, moves very well, footwork is great, striking defense looks good to me as well. When he's not fighting guys that are towering over him, his takedown defense looks very good as well. I like everything that this kid has. I don't know if I'm just too high on him, but I feel like this kid has top 5 to 7 potential if he continues to get groomed out and continues to get comfortable at the new training camp he's with, which is Fight Ready MMA. Funny thing about Fight Ready MMA, that was actually his the camp he was going against in his last 2 out of 3 fights. Obviously on the Contender Series against Reyes Cortez, he fought them as well against GSP, and then decided Rufus Sport is no more. Let's go on down to Fight Ready because they seem to know what they're doing, and I absolutely agree with him. So I can't wait to see how they are able to groom him and progress his skills and see if he can achieve the potential I believe he has. Joshua Weems, I feel like he's that guy that's going to come in, go 0-2, 0-3 in the UFC. Like, he doesn't really seem to have much. He has some decent leg kicks. His jiu-jitsu off of his back seems to be solid, but I don't know what it's going to look like when he's fighting, legit guys that actually won't get tapped from a guy in their full guard, right? It's not often we see that in MMA unless you're going up against Paul Craig or something like that. Weems has some good power, but I feel like he can get dinged up here by Christian Rodriguez, and I think Rodriguez likely finishes him as well. So I haven't bet it yet. I was waiting for the line to drop on some more books before I tipped it, but I'm looking at Rodriguez inside the distance. I want to see, I haven't looked at my books yet. I saw my guy Clint actually betted 3 units at plus 100. Like, I'm considering going 1 to 2 units myself if I can get plus 100 as well. This seems like a layup spot for Rodriguez. Hopefully he can get it done. We'll see how that goes. Patrick, are you sharing the same sentiments with me? Am I jerking off Christian Rodriguez a little bit too much here? Or do you think that he is the truth as well? And how much of a chance do you give Weems as well?
I mean, maybe jerking him off a little bit. I mean, he's, a little unproven, but he looks like he's got the goods. He's very comfortable in there, too, and always fighting for your dollar, which is why he's now, close to minus 400 on the money line as well. He did make us sweat for the weigh-ins. They had to get that box of shame for him, and he still made weight, but his opponent did not on very short notice for Weems, and Weems has been finished in both of his knocked out in both of his losses. So, you could go the KO route, but inside the distance at even money is a very good play for Rodriguez here. I like that one a lot. Just because you saw with the JSP fight, he had all the control time from the bottom, was actually going for a very tight guillotine in the beginning of that fight, even switching to armbar attempts at certain points. So he's always fighting no matter what position he's in for your dollar. So I am parlaying him with the main event as well. So we'll get into which fighter on the main event that is. But yeah, C-Rod is one of my most confident picks on this card. He made us sweat, though. Again, like you've got money on somebody who's parlayed, and then they got to bring out the box of shame. But at least he made weight. He didn't look terrible, So what are you going to do? But I think he wins.
Yeah, like I really hope he gets it down because it must have been like a close cut for him, and essentially to want to have the box of shame, and obviously coming down to the dying minutes of the weigh-in window as well. So we'll see if he can kind of get that under wraps. Obviously, it's been a storyline of his career, which is why he wasn't already in the UFC. But we'll see going forward. But this is a layup, like me and Patrick think. Go ahead and parlay up Christian Rodriguez, boys. I don't think he lets us down. All right, let's get to this next matchup. It is a flyweight matchup with another short notice step in. We got Carlos Mota, who's coming in as the minus 170 favorite, plus 145 the return on Cody Durden. Now, this is what a professional looks like, Patrick, a guy who takes a fight on short notice. I don't even think we really talked about the fact that Joshua Weems missed weight. Well, yes, he did miss weight. He was the only guy that missed weight, but a guy like Carlos Mota, a guy that is ready 24/7, ready to take any fight at any time, especially with how much he has been puffing his chest on social media over the last year, maybe 2 years. You'd expect him to go in there like a professional and make weight. What are your thoughts on this flyweight matchup, and who do you think gets their hand raised?
I like Carlos Mota a lot. I just came off of betting him in the LFA against Rizvan Abuev, and he got very easy knockout. Deaded Abuev with that left hook that just flatlined him. So he's got that undeniable power, unbelievable power for this weight class too. You're not used to seeing guys with that one-hit knockout power, but his get-up game is good off the ground too. You saw him have some pretty good scrambles against Charles Johnson, at least early in the fight, until he gassed out and eventually got laid out in round 5, kind of like one of those TKOs that was due to fatigue as well as the strikes of Johnson. So, Mota's been in some big spots. He's been 5 rounds before. I like him in this fight against Cody Durden. The line is okay. The line's playable, right? There might be a little extra value on that just because I think Mota is that well-rounded and that much of a step above in the stand-up. Now, Cody Durden could come in here and just wrestle him from the get-go, right? But I think Durden's going to test his striking until it goes poorly for him. Then in round 2, if he's got to mix it up and go relentless for those takedowns, I think he might go that route. I don't think he just comes out of the gate, Cody Durden starts wrestling right off the bat. probably test the striking a bit. We'll get some points on the board for Mota. And Durden, even though he's like one of these wrestle boxer guys, he's not the best at holding opponents down. So I don't think it's too much of a threat. I think Carlos Mota is playable. What's the odds at on this one? Has it moved up at all? I saw like minus 170 to minus 180.
Yeah, that's what I'm. That's at least according to Bet on or Best Fight Odds. The best odd you can get is minus 160 plus 140.
Yeah, I would play that because he looked decent on the scales. He looks ready to go, and it is a short notice turnaround. But he had a very short fight back in August against Rizvan Abuev. Probably just hurt his hand a little bit, bouncing off the jaw of that guy, if anything. So he should be good to go. He looked really confident on the scales and excited to be in the UFC at long last.
Yeah, this guy has been, shouting from the rooftops that he deserves to be in the UFC. And although he had that slip up against Charles Johnson, it was a great fight. It was a back and forth fight. It was a fight of the year contender, essentially. And fighting at that pace, I don't blame him for slowing down the way that he did. Luckily for him, he only has 3 rounds here against Cody Durden. And I'm sure, just based off the Durden and Orichi Lang fight, we kind of know that this might be a little bit of a slugfest, a little bit of a war. But I feel like Mota, with his BJJ black belt, with his ability to kind of scramble and get back to his feet, mixed in with the fact that Durden really isn't the greatest in terms of controlling his guys on the mat, this will likely play out on the feet more often than not. And I think that Durden may think he stands a little bit more of a chance there because, obviously got a knockout on the feet in his last fight or his last win against JP Bays. Maybe that gives him some confidence, but I think I think that would be ill-advised. I think that would be very much ill-advised against a guy like Carlos Mota, who can crack like him with the speed that he has, with the combinations in which he throws. I like that minus 170 line as well. Shout out to the line vultures out there just waiting for lines to drop, because you would have gotten Carlos Mota closer to plus 125 had you been just waiting on Bet Online and waiting.
I was waiting for it. I didn't even see that. So
plus 125. Shout out to my guy Brennan Olivas, who jumped on that almost immediately. But yeah, no, I like Mota in the spot. I think the line is perfect as well. I don't really care about the fact that it's short notice because, like I said earlier, this guy's ready to go pretty much at any time. And the fact that he made weight with no issue lets you know that as well. All right, let's get to this next matchup. It's a featherweight bout between Chase Hooper and Steve Garcia. In terms of odds, we got minus 295 now on the young gun Chase Hooper and plus 245 on Steve Garcia. I've been trying to figure out a way this week whether I should have taken the underdog money on Steve Garcia, but after you run the tape and see the trouble that this guy gets himself into, it's tough to even come to terms to playing him at plus 245, plus 250. Chase Hooper, although still young, although still has some work to do in terms of his striking, should be able to get to the positions he needs to here, specifically the back of Steve Garcia. When he shoots double legs, when he goes for takedowns, he does a very good job in terms of not letting or not giving up. He circles to the back pretty efficiently, especially when we can get this fight up against the cage. And I think from there we can see him either hop on the back of Steve Garcia, drag this fight to the ground, pull guard if he needs to, but I'm pretty certain that he'll be able to get this into the grappling realm. And honestly, I think he could actually find the finish too. I was eyeing that Chase Hooper via sub prop. I saw it open up at plus 250. Let's see where it's sitting at now. Wow. Plus 140, plus 170, anything around that range or between that range. That's what you can get Hooper at submission right now. I don't mind that. I really don't. I think that's his path to victory here, likely his best path to victory as well. And, Steve Garcia has some big power in his hands, decent striking. Conventionally speaking, I think his takedown defense is not that bad. It's just when he gets tangled up in those clinch positions and in those scrambles, that's where I think he kind of loses a step, and that's where Chase Hooper will likely be a step or even two ahead of him as well. So I like Chase here. I like Chase by sub. I'm not touching that money line myself, but I'm likely going to be eyeing that finish prop or that submission prop myself. What about yourself, Patrick? Do you think Steve has what it takes to pull off the upset, or you go on the young gun as well?
I think the unders are interesting in this spot too, because Steve Garcia, I would imagine he's not going to win a decision here. I'd imagine it would have to be some sort of early knockout maybe, or just some flash KO potential from him, from Chase Hooper, screwing up with some tall man defense. But Hooper looked great in his last fight. Even if the striking wasn't elite, it was at least more comfortable, right? He seemed less hesitant to let his hands go and his kicks go. And yeah, Chase Hooper has that weird tall man, ability to go in range very quickly and close the distance, clinch up with you, and then eventually get you to the ground. And even if he has to do it off the clinch on the cage and just jump on your back, be a backpack, like a giant white Aljamain Sterling, he can do that. You know what I mean? So, and you're not going to lose minutes there. So I think more than likely you're right. He gets this done inside the distance. It could be one of those spots where even that plus 500 Chase Hooper knockout is interesting here, because last fight, he'll get that body lock triangle on you, and you're going to roll to avoid the choke. Then you're getting punches rained down on your face, and you roll back. Maybe it's a submission, So sometimes just the inside the distance is better not to choose a side there, You'll be slapping yourself if you had one of those and he gets the opposite. But I think Chase Hooper wins this fight. Steve Garcia, the Luis Pena fight was just embarrassing, right? To get controlled that much. That would not bode him well against Chase Hooper. He did have the Ontiveros win, but it's Ontiveros. You kind of expect that. And now getting knocked out pretty badly by Maheshate back in June, that was. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where you go with Steve Garcia from here. I think he's getting the loss this weekend.
Yeah, he might not be in the UFC after this weekend, let's be honest, especially with the tough run that he would have been on after that. I love the Aljamain Sterling comparison because it's true. Like, honestly, it's the first time I've ever heard it, but it is fucking true. Like, they pretty much fight similarly. Maybe Aljamain Sterling is a little bit more deadly and threatening when he is able to get an opponent's back, but they still have that level of threat per se when they are able to get fights into the grappling position. So yeah, I like it. Chase Hooper hopefully gets a dub here, and hopefully inside the distance too.
And he seems to have like some sort of durability quality to him too.
Well, it's the young man thing, right? The fact that he hasn't really taken much damage, like he can eat those shots. And yes, of course, I think he could eventually get knocked out, but I think he has that going for him, essentially, where he hasn't really been flatlined in the past. Yes, he's taken some beatings, but he hasn't really gone out. And
he's got that fighter grit to him, right? Where he can take that beating, lose round 1 and 2, and then come back in round 3 and still
Peter Barrett fight.
Keep his head in the game. You know what I mean? So I like that about him.
There we go. All right, let's get to this next matchup. It is a middleweight belt between Joseph Uglyman Holmes and Jun Young Park. In terms of odds, we got some chalk here, but a little bit of action actually coming in on the underdog. Minus 215 now on Jun Young Park, plus 185 the return on Uglyman Joe Holmes. Patrick, I'll let you kick this one off, my man. What are you thinking between these middleweights? Does Joseph Holmes pull off the upset, or does the Iron Turtle do Iron Turtle things here?
Man, first off, just pointing out the money lines for this week, they've been very strange. Where like when I do my full card breakdown on Sunday or Monday, and even my tape study, like last week, some of these lines, I'm like, I don't want to touch some of these lines, but now they've come back and they're playable like the day before the fight. How often does that happen? Because I do like the Jun Young Park side of things here. I think he's way better on the inside with his boxing. Sometimes his cardio looks hit or miss, but I think it is decent in this spot. And he's got all the experience. He's so proven in the UFC. And Joseph Holmes is a guy where, even though he's got all of those physical abilities, like the every advantage you would want at middleweight, right? He's got the long reach, the long, the big height, kind of like Jamie Pickett, who he lost to, right? These guys should be beasts at this weight class, and they just fall short. So I think Jun Young Park does have a very well-rounded game in this spot, and I think he gets the job done here. I think he answers with more volume. Every one punch that Holmes is going to attempt, I think Jun Young Park is going to be very slick as the shorter man here. Get on the inside, box him up, get back out of range, and then maybe work the clinch game as well. So give me Jun Young Park, and that minus, what is that now, minus 215 you said? That is
I saw 215.
That is very playable. I'd be confident in that one.
Yeah, I'm glad that we share the same sentiments here. I'm big on Park myself here. I really think that Holmes, for a long time in his career, has just gotten off on his physical traits. The fact that he's big, he's strong, he's athletic to a certain extent, that's only going to work against a certain level of competition. The Alan Amadovskis of the world, right? He's going to be able to beat those guys. The Jonathan Patis of the world, he's going to be able to beat those guys. But when he jumps into against a guy who can match the physicality, like he did against JB Pickett, something that you talked about already, that's where he starts to fall short. When he starts to jump in against guys that are much more skilled than him, and even if he does have that physicality advantage over those guys, I think he's going to fall short. And tomorrow will be a perfect example of that, where he is a little bit towering over Jun Young Park, but I think that Park has that, that advantage when it comes to the boxing, like you're saying, when it comes to the grappling, when it comes to the overall game. Like, I think he can really put that pace and pressure on a guy like Joseph Holmes and possibly get him out of there late. I don't think he has a finish in the UFC right now, but he was, I think he had a total of 8 finishes or 7 finishes total before coming to the UFC. The guy can finish. depending on the level of competition he's going up against. And some people have kind of laughed at the fact that he wasn't able to finish a guy like John Phillips. But like Phillips is a tough, rugged dude, right? Tough to get out, especially with the way that Park fights. But Holmes, I feel like this guy will slow down once he starts to feel that resistance, once he starts to feel that, oh, this might not be a fight that I'm going to win. I think once he feels that, we'll see Junior Park really take it to another level, drag him to the ground, possibly finish him with some ground and pound. But I like that plus 200 on Park to finish inside the distance. But I really don't mind the chalk here either. I personally got in at minus 225 earlier this week. I was more than happy with that line. I think there's a huge skill discrepancy here, and I think the Iron Turtle comes out on top, gets that dub, and hopefully takes a legit step up in competition. This was a step back, if we're being honest, right? He fought Eric Anders last time around. There's no way Eric Anders, who another guy similarly gets away with his physical attributes and all that. Junior Park, sketchy decision. Say what you want about that. He still went out there and got the win. Glad that we're both on the.
My only worry about Junior Park is he seems to be one of these guys where sometimes he'll fight to the rhythm of his opponent. If it's a low volume paced fight like Eric Anders, he'll be very low volume, barely win the fight. If it's like a RoboCop Rodriguez where he wants to get in there and mix it up, he'll answer and it'll be an exciting fight. So I think it really depends on how Joseph Holmes fights to see where Junior Park wins decisively or not. You know what I mean? Because it could be a very slow paced fight.
Yeah, after Joseph Holmes' first loss against Jamie Pickett, the first thing that he said was, I will never let cardio fail me again. Well, we're going to find out tomorrow whether cardio will fail you or not, because Iron Turtle will definitely gas you out if he can take you there. All right, let's get to this next matchup. Let's talk about a heavyweight fight between veterans. Andre Arlovski, who's coming in as a plus 205 underdog, the return on the favorite Marcos Rogerio de Lima. We got minus 245. Now, whenever you give me Andre Arlovski at like this good of a number against a middle tier heavyweight, you bet your ass I'm going to be jumping on that line. Like that, there is no way I shouldn't, right? The Blagoy-Ivanov fight is a perfect example of how Andre Arlovski could be successful in this matchup. Yes, Rogerio de Lima will likely win the first round off of just raw power alone, right? Like he would throw 3-4 punch combinations, all with just fight-ending power on every single one of those. But I feel like he's going to struggle to actually catch Andre Arlovski, who does a good job in terms of his movement from the outside range, whereas Blagoy-Ivanov is just fine, just staying in the pocket and eating those shots and saying, what do you have left, my man? Like, I don't think that's going to work for Arlovski. Arlovski needs to stay on his bicycle, use his style of just, even if it's just moving backwards and then just waiting to eventually spring forward with a couple shots. That will help him a lot in this matchup. He will likely lose the first round, but even if he doesn't, you're going to be kicking yourself if you're just waiting for a live betting opportunity on Arlovski here, because he could maybe win that first round. It's possible. But I think he could outstrike de Lima here. Obviously, the durability is always a question mark. He's eaten some pretty big shots over this 6-1 run that he's currently on, and he's been moving forward. De Lima obviously throws maybe a little bit more sting than some of his past opponents, but I think that we'll see Arlovski traverse the cage well here, roll with some of the shots, get out of the way of most of those, and then really start to pull away later on in this fight. The one concern I do have, I wonder how it's going to look if de Lima looks to get this fight to the ground, because we haven't seen too much of Arlovski on the ground, right? My big concern is the fact that he gave up such an easy rear naked choke to Tom Aspinall in that matchup. Didn't even fight it. As soon as the guy was under his chin, he just tapped. Like, did not even fight. The guy didn't even have hooks in or anything like that.
Yeah, he was still like rubbing the sand out of his eyes, waking up for that round.
Yeah, pretty much. But like, it was weird to see. Regardless, I still think he has a ton of value at plus 200 here. He's a reliable heavyweight. You know what you're going to get out of him. He's always going to make fights close, especially if they go the full 15 minutes. That's what I'm thinking we're going to get here. I took the money line plus 200. I'm seeing that it's getting better right now. Kind of surprised that it's still getting better, but is what it is. Give me Arlovski plus 200. Win by decision. Not bad either. Patrick, what are you thinking here? Value, or are you thinking de Lima just starts this cat?
I can't believe we're on another agreement here. I like Andre Arlovski a lot in this spot, man. And I fell for it. I took it at plus 190, thinking that would be the best we would get. I thought I was, robbing the bank with that one. And now I saw one book at like plus 220 at a certain point too. It's peaking at. So insane. I think you broke it down very well. Marcos Rogerio de Lima, not one of the, he's oversized. He's got a little spare, a little spare weight.
Former 205er, and now he's weighing in at 260.
But he's not the most unathletic, fattest heavyweight. Andre Arlovski's run circles around some of these younger, chubbier guys lately, and he's just giving them veteran lessons. The guy's been in the UFC 38 times. 38 times. Way more than any other heavyweight has ever lasted. I think the next guy is like Frank Mir with like 25, 27, something like that. So yeah, he's got an insane longevity, and his boxing is very, very good. He throws in combinations, can kind of lull you into a slow rhythm and pressure forward with nice combinations, then get out of range. So I think it's going to be danger for Arlovski very early in this fight when Hojiri de Lima is able to get that knockout on him, or it'll be dangerous late because Arlovski's cardio is kind of failing him in some spots. By round 3, he's sometimes a little bit slower. And, Hojiri de Lima just weighed in at like 260 pounds, So he's got 25 pounds on him, and he can cage stall. He can lean on him, and Arlovski could get trapped in that clinch position on the cage and just lose a very boring round that way. So I think it's dangerous early, dangerous late when the cardio is failing both guys. But in the middle, if Arlovski can outbox in the end of round 1, the majority of round 2, he could win another greasy 29-28. So I like Arlovski. I like him. The money line is good enough, but to win by decision like he's done his past 10 victories, decisions like 275 plus 300, and I like the split decision, which I saw at plus 1,100, even plus 1,300, because he's had a lot of splits in his last 24 fights in this second stint of the UFC. He's been in 5 split decisions, and 2 of those are his last couple of fights. So
his last 2 were splits.
Give me Arlovski by split decision. Take some damage early, win the meat of the fight, and then lose the position on the cage in the last few seconds. One judge sees it for Hojiri de Lima, the other 2 see it for Arlovski. There we are.
Well, hopefully I don't have to sweat too much to cash my Arlovski ticket, but I'll take a split decision nonetheless. Just to give you guys a peek into how how historical and how iconic Andre Arlovski is in the UFC. He owns 7 heavyweight records. Let me just quickly go through those for you guys. Total fights, he has 38. Closest second, like Patrick said, was Frank Mir at 27. 23 heavyweight wins. Number 2 is Derek Lewis at 17. Most decision wins, 12. He doubles up second place. Marcin Tybura has 6 in second place, but Andre Arlovski has 12. I got another one here. Total fight time for heavyweights. He outlasts, holy crap. So second place has 4 hours and 7 minutes. That's Junior Dos Santos. Andre Arlovski has 6 hours and 9 minutes. He has 2 full hours over second place there. A couple more stats here for you guys real quick. Most significant strikes landed. Andre Arlovski, 1,427 significant strikes. That's 300 more than second place, which is, again, Junior Dos Santos. And I believe this is the last one I have here. Where did it go? Oh, that was the last one. I apologize. Or sorry, total strikes landed. He landed 1,700. The one before that was total significant strikes. So the guy likes to fight a lot, if you can't tell, and he can punch you a lot too.
I could listen to those stats all day long on these OG guys in the UFC, man. That's awesome.
Let's go. All right, let's get to this next matchup, and it is the prelim headliner. And luckily enough, Patrick, it actually falls on you to start this one off. We got Roman Dolidze. It's the one that you were looking forward to as well. Plus 150, minus 175 on Phil Hawes. I can't put my finger on this matchup, Patrick. Show me the way. What are you thinking here?
God, I got a weird take on this one. I like Dolidze in the spot, not by very much. I think it's dicey, but I kind of favor Dolidze as the underdog in this matchup. I just like a lot of attributes about him, man. I mean, not only is Phil Hawes, like a former D1 guy, but I think Roman Dolidze is going to have that size and strength in the grappling if it goes that way. So Phil Hawes can't rely on the takedowns to bail himself out of, a bad situation like he's known to do. We see Dolidze fighting, a number of different ways, right? It could be slow and boring, like against Staropoli. He's okay with winning a decision that way. His last fight was super exciting, getting that knockout in the clinch on Kyle Daukaus. So he's got the power that he came into the UFC kind of touting, right? He was kind of a finisher before, just having some boring fights in the UFC. But his fight IQ is bad, but so is Phil Hawes at times, So I'm taking the guy who's got the size and is not afraid to really just stall this out on the cage. I think Phil Hawes, his cardio is still in question to me, So whenever he goes for those really fast starts, whether it's with the strikes or the wrestling, he always finds a way to blow it. Like, remember that crazy knockout he took against Julian Marquez?
Contender series.
The contender series, yeah. I mean, flatlined, right? Every time this guy loses, he's getting finished, and he usually starts off winning the fight until he loses it badly. So Give me Dolidze here. I think Dolidze could win inside the distance or by a boring decision just based off of control time. Nothing I'm convicted enough to put my money behind. Don't get me wrong here. I could see Phil Hawes just being more active. Sometimes the gripe I have on Dolidze, not only is he dropping back for leg locks and doing dumb things like that at times, but he admires his work sometimes. He'll land like a clean punch and then kind of like smile at the guy and taunt him. It's like, go in there and, add some more to that, try to finish the fight. I don't know. I just think the size and strength and the anti-wrestling of Dolidze is going to be too much for Phil Hawes to really handle here. So give me the underdog by just the slightest of conviction.
See, the way that I broke down the fight was kind of the same way that you did, but with saying those things about Phil Hawes in the sense that, like, if Dolidze wants to take a grapple heavy approach, I think he's going to struggle to get the D1 wrestling to the mat, right? Like, I think it might end up canceling each other out. And then on the feet, I think that Phil Hawes, he's starting to get a better striking game, and the fact that he's not just throwing overhand rights anymore, trying to send you to Mars, right? Like, the guy is just actually planning, throwing combinations, throwing leg kicks. He seems to be portioning out his gas tank a little bit better than he did prior in his career. But like, I still need to see more of that before I can truly trust that he's going to go out there and, play a conservative game or try to win minutes here rather than just knock his opponent's head over to Mars or something like that. So that's my big concern here. I ended up going Phil Hawes. Surprisingly by decision as well, in terms of just putting together more output, putting together like cage work, pushing him up against the cage, being the stronger one. I think he might end up being the stronger one. That's where the big hullabaloo comes, right? Like, nobody really knows what's going to happen there.
I can't wait to see it. That's part of why I'm excited for this fight, because it's a big question mark, right?
It is a huge question mark. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not so certain that I'm going to go out there and put my money on this matchup in terms of being convicted on either side. Like, both guys have shown flaws to me. Both guys show that guys can exploit those flaws as well. That's why I have some big question marks. So I am going to lean Hawes. I am not playing him at minus 175. And then the Dolidze side, I don't blame anybody taking a shot there, because one, you are getting plus money, and two, this fight could go any fucking way. I would rather get the more value out of it. You could likely get that from the Dolidze side, but as a just straight up prediction, I'm going to go Phil Hawes.
If there's a finish, who do you think gets it in this fight? Because we haven't seen Dolidze really hurt that much, besides a clean right cross from Trevin Giles stumbled him a bit, but you haven't really seen him hurt,
The question is, like, how will he react to Phil Hawes' power? Right, like, depending on how Hawes seems to throw, but like, if he sets up a big strike or he sets up a big head kick and he lands it cleanly, is Roman Dolidze going to eat it like lunch and keep coming forward? I don't know that. Like, right. I lean Phil Hawes is more likely to get a finish here, with the exception of unless he blows his gas tank at Dolidze, takes advantage later on in this fight. Like, that's my big concern. The under, which I honestly haven't even thought about. That is sitting under 2.5, is sitting at minus 125. So like, no crazy line there. Given my analysis of the matchup, the over 2.5 at minus 105, I guess, is not that bad, but still, I'm just too many question marks. So let's see the more data that these guys can provide us with a matchup like this, preferably over 15 minutes.
I would lean the over in this fight. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, minus 105, not too bad of a line if you feel convicted about it. All right, that is a wrap on the prelims. Can't believe we got through those within 33 minutes here. I'm not used to being in shows like this. My guy Cody likes to talk a little bit over on propping you up, and we're sitting here for 2 hours, but it's all good. I like getting through it nice and efficiently. I feel like we're sending our point across pretty good to the viewers as well. But shout out to the 60 live viewers that we currently have. Make sure you guys smash that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And you guys can follow my guy Patrick on Twitter. The link is actually in the description below, so you guys don't even have to type anything in. Just click that link, hit him with a follow. I promise you guys will enjoy everything he brings to your timeline. And not to mention, he has his own YouTube channel as well that you guys can follow, Addicted2Combat. It is in the title of the video as well. Make sure you guys just copy and paste that all over and give my man a follow as well. All right, let's get to this main card. Very excited about this curtain jerker that we got between Dustin Jacoby, who's coming in as a minus 175 favorite now. He's going up against Khalil Rountree, coming in at plus 150. I always love me some Dustin Jacoby, Patrick. The guy goes out there, you know what you're going to get with him, unless, of course, he has a foot injury like he had against Mihailo Shajak. Almost made me shit a brick because I'm like, why is this guy not throwing any kicks? But luckily, he still goes out there, puts together a solid body of work in rounds 2 and 3, gets his hand raised that night. But when he does have his kicks, when he can actually utilize those, he does it very well in terms of maintaining his distance, staying active with it from the outside, and then following up with combinations with his hands afterwards. I love everything this guy does. His takedown defense is very much improving. And I think the time that he's been spending at Factory X now has really shown off, what a guy like Mark Montoya can do with the skill set like Dustin Jacoby's. It's crazy. He's on a let me pull up the number here. I think it's like an 8-fight run or 8-fight unbeaten streak since coming back to MMA, because a lot of people know he used to be in the UFC. Then he took a little bit of a hiatus, started just straight up kickboxing. But I believe it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wins in his last 9 fights. And obviously that one outlier is the draw that he had against Iwan Cutelaba. But yeah, I love me some Jacoby in the spot. I think his finesse and his discipline is going to ring supreme here over the power and that brute strength of Khalil Rountree. Khalil obviously had an all-time high in terms of his confidence, stringing together 2 wins over his last 2 fights. But he's being very disciplined about it. Let's not get that twist or anything like that. But I think he's going to struggle with the puzzle that Dustin Jacoby has here for him, right? Just the combination striking, the movement about the cage. He's not going to be there to be hit in the pocket. I like a lot of what Dustin Jacoby does. And to me, it feels like Khalil Rountree mainly just has like a knockout or bust type of situation ahead of him here. And in those types of situations, I like going with a much more disciplined overall fighter, which is Dustin Jacoby. He can win by knockout. He can win by decision. And that's what I like here. So even at minus 170, which is where I ended up taking the shot, I like him straight up here. I think he continues this run that he's on. And hopefully after this Khalil fight, he gets another top 10 guy, because at this point in time, you got to give it to him. He very much deserves it. And his time is kind of running out in terms of competing at a high level, right? We're talking about 34 years old. He's on the back end of his prime, per se. So let's get him rolling. Hopefully a big win here can get him there as well. Let's go Jacoby by decision. What are you thinking here? You think Khalil starts to roll, get a 3-fight winning streak going, or does Jacoby go out there and punch his way to a decision?
It'll be Khalil's first 3-fight win streak in the UFC, right? I don't think he's ever broke 2 fights in a row here, and I don't think he does. We're back on the agreement now. We disagreed on the Phil Hawes Dolidze, but we're back on Jacoby.
Ever so slightly.
I do have a bet on Jacoby. I like him in this spot. I like his striking. I like his size in this matchup. I like his feints. He'll show the knee and then beat you up with the hands and vice versa. You know, he's got really nice kicks. Just adds up volume over time and keeps distance very, very well, especially with the feints. And I think that's going to do him wonders here. You saw what happened when somebody doesn't maintain distance, and Khalil Rountree just, beat the piss out of him, especially the fastest start to round 2 you've ever seen. He hit him with every limb, every elbow, every knee, a body kick on the way down, knee to the head, and just destroyed Khalil Robertson. And he didn't even know what happened to him. So I don't see that happening to Jacoby. You've never seen anybody do that to Jacoby, right? He's lost to King Mo Lawal. I think it was ground and pound. And then way back. Alex Pereira, as well in kickboxing. Yeah. So that's about it. Otherwise, he just, again, through slick movement, good defense, he's, able to, and he can bait guys in too. He'll drop his hands like you saw against Dawoon Jung, work the pull counters, and it paid off for him that night. A little bit of a weird stoppage on that fight as well, but it wasn't protested. Yeah, it wasn't protested either. I was on Dawoon Jung. I believe him to stop that win streak, but yeah, I like Jacoby in this spot. If nothing else, I think he just gets a decision here just through more volume and output, right? Khalil Rountree, you can have the version of him that came out in March against Robertson, or you can have the guy against Marcin Prachnio, who really just stands there and stares, and does nothing. So the fight, remember that fight? I'm still scarred by that, where everybody thought the under 1.5 or the fight doesn't go was like the head.
This guy right here. I lost a fuck ton of money that day because I'm like, okay, either Khalil knocks him out or he gets knocked out. So this is not going to a decision. I tied that fight doesn't go to a decision to way too much. And that was not a good look at all. I think it was UFC 254, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was one of those Connor and Poirier undercards there. Yeah,
So
that was not nice.
give me Jacoby very confidently here. I think he gets it done. I don't see a spot where he gets manhandled. And the one spot where Jacoby, screwed up, right? That draw against Ian Cutelaba, he got out wrestled, dominantly in round one. I don't see that game plan being employed by Rountree here. So give me Jacoby.
I like it. We are back on the same page here. Let's see if that continues with our next matchup. We're going to be going with Trishan Gore going up against Josh Fremd. In terms of odds, we got minus 155 on the Factory X product, Josh Fremd, and plus 135 on the newly minted member of Fortis MMA. Patrick, I'll let you kick this one off, my guy. What are you thinking here? You think Trishan Gore finally gets his hand raised in the UFC, or will he get sent packing? Because this will likely be his pink slip fight if he can't get his hand raised.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. This is my least confident pick of the entire card, to be honest. Which is odd, right? Because you think Josh Fremd seems to be the more well-rounded guy. He seems to have more striking output. And that's how I ultimately think Fremd wins this fight, is by just striking output. Maybe can put Trishan Gore away. Based on that last fight, it seems like Trishan Gore has got maybe some durability issues. I'm not sure. Cody Brundage, hit him with something that didn't appear from, the audience's eye to be that tough, and even some follow-up ground and pound shots that didn't seem like the hardest ones in the world. And Trishan Gore was asleep a couple of times. So it's just the fact that there's a few things I don't like from Trishan Gore, right? He kind of waits instead of countering. You watched that fight with Brian Battle earlier this year, and you see him kind of wait for Brian Battle to finish like a 6-piece sequence, end with a leg kick, and then Trishan Gore is like, oh, okay, you're done. I'll start fighting now, and maybe, throw a couple punches. So I don't like that at all. I want him to be more aggressive in this fight. Maybe we saw a glimpse of that against Cody Brundage, but we, couldn't see the full performance from Gore. I don't know. So that's why I'm a little bit, on both sides of this one. What I don't like from Fremd is his tall man defense is so bad, and he's just asking to get that big overhand right or that left hook, which are two really good weapons for Trishan Gore. I could see him getting a knockout. So if there was a prop for this one, it would be fight doesn't go or that Trishan Gore knockout. But I got to take Fremd to just do more work over time and win this bout.
Yeah, I was on the Gore side in that Cody Brundage fight, and after seeing him defend the takedowns of Brundage, I'm like, okay, baby, let's go. Let's get this knockout. And then it comes from the other party, and that kind of deflated me that night, and I was surprised. It seemed as though it was like a shot that he didn't even see coming. Like it was one of those shots, like it came over his guard and hit his chin, and he's just like, oh, shit. I guess I'm going down right now. And then he ended up obviously getting knocked out.
Yeah, it looked like his heels clicked together and he went down.
Yeah, it was weird. It was very, very weird for sure. But I feel like this is one of those irresponsible spots where I am forcing myself to pull the trigger on Trishan Gore. Like, I feel like he has good enough takedown defense that if Fremd, like you said, who is the more complete fighter, he can take it to the ground if he needs to. I think he's going to struggle to, should he take that path. But even on the feet, like I don't like the tall man defense. If Gore can kind of blitz through that, and he'll have the speed advantage in this fight, that's one of his best attributes. I think he can land on the chin of Fremd here and put him out. The fact that we can get around plus 300 on Gore by KO, I think is crazy. So I think that's a good enough little sprinkle there. But the way that I went about it is I took the shot on Gore, straight up money line. I think I got plus 140-ish, plus 145.
Okay.
But I also took the under 2.5, just as kind of an insurance spot, right? Should he get knocked out, this bet completely cancels itself out. Or if Gore is the one that actually ends up getting the knockout, I cash on both of my tickets there. Fremd KO is absolutely live. Like, the guy has some decent enough power. Gore, if he truly does have durability issues, it's not the greatest that he's coming back only 3 months after he got separated from his consciousness. That under is kind of my insurance play here. But I do think that Gore can keep this in his realm. I think he can keep it striking, and I'm hoping under the general Safe Saud, they'll be able to put together a solid enough game plan to beat a guy like Josh Fremd, to utilize Gore's talents and physical abilities to the best that he can. And I think that a guy like Safe Saud could definitely bring it out of him. So interested to see any type of evolution that we might see from Gore. Maybe it was a bit of a humbling experience to get knocked out the way that he did. Let's see how he comes back and bounces back from that. But again, I took Gore by knockout, but the under 2.5 is my safety net, essentially, if Fremd does knock him out, which I think is absolutely possible here.
Wait, did you say that was a recent camp move in between the Brundage fight and this one for Trishan Gore? Oh, okay.
He spent a little bit of time.
It's a big piece of information, to be honest, because it looks like Gore has all of the tools, the power,
Yeah.
the athleticism, and just the, he seems to have the fundamental like striking to do it. He just needs to learn how to time these things, put it together, read things on tape. And under a good coach, I could see that happening for sure. The outcome for this fight that I can see in my mind played out is Tresean Gore flatlining Josh Fremd here with like an overhand right or a 2-3 counter. But again, on paper, when I'm looking at it, it seems like a puncher's chance to me. It seems like he wouldn't win a decision. So I got to go with the guy, not the puncher's chance is usually how I do these things, but that is a good piece of information, keeping tabs on where his camp is going to. He's taking things seriously, going to a high level coach like that. I like it.
Apparently, he's sleeping on Kennedy Nzechukwu's couch in preparation of this matchup. So let's see if that dedication for him. I think he left behind his wife and his kid or something like that. But
he's got to leave him behind. He's going to be the double champion. Of course, he's going to leave him behind.
Dog, I remember when he first said that before the Brian Battle fight. I bet Brian Battle that night, and I was able to cash that ticket. But when I heard him say the double champ thing, I'm like, this guy needs some humbling. You have 4 fights, dog. You got 4 fights. Let's not talk about double champs.
Hey, man, even Daniel Cormier lost a fight before he became champ. All right, it could be done. It could be done.
Well, we'll see what Tresean Gore. Hopefully, he starts off that path to the double champ status with the bang here by getting that win over Josh Fremd tomorrow night. But we'll see how it plays out. All right, let's get to this next matchup. We got the heavyweights going at it here. Recent Contender Series signee Waldo Cortes-Acosta comes in at -195, plus 165 on Jared Vanderaa, who's probably in a pink slip fight here. Should he lose this fight, it would be his 5th loss in a row. You would believe the UFC will likely get rid of him if that ends up being the case. Watching these guys stare down, man, you really see how big of a man Waldo Cortes-Acosta is as well. That guy is a big dude. And watching majority of his fights, like not just his Contender Series fight, but watching all of his other fights, he doesn't really fight like a heavyweight, right? Like he moves well, he throws in combinations, he mixes in the clinch and takedowns when he sees fit, and he has solid enough cardio to do it over 15 minutes if he needs to. And I feel like this is one of those spots where like both guys are going to kind of feel each other out on the feet a bit. We likely will get some work up against the cage, which is where I'm starting to lean on the over here. The over 1.5 currently sits at -145, -130. I haven't bet it myself yet. I think that likely would be the best number at this point that I'll end up getting. People love betting those over 1.5 in like Jared Vanderaa fights, Josh Parisian fights, Chase Sherman fights. And I think that this is one of those spots where we can kind of do the same thing. I do like Waldo's skill set a little bit more, right? Jared Vanderaa, when he's at his best, he can put his combinations together, footwork and output, and he can get his hand raised. That's like the Justin Tafa fight, which so happens to be the last fight that he's actually won. Right, that was 5 fights ago now, but I just don't think that Waldo Cortes-Acosta will allow him to get away with that. Right, if Vanderaa is getting a little bit too comfortable on the feet, I think he'll tie him up, push him up against the cage, try to slow him down, dirty boxing, dirty clinch work, and then get back out into space again and try to get his own groove going as well. I like Waldo. Waldo by decision, I think, was around +300, +400, which I don't think is a bad line either. Worth a shot there, but the over 1.5 is likely where I'll be putting the majority of my money. I get it. Waldo Acosta looks good as a prospect, but we need to see him continue to go out there and fight some solid dudes. And I think Jared Vanderaa is a good litmus test for him to see how he stands going up against UFC competition. Should he pass this with flying colors, I'll have a little bit more comfort and in terms of backing him with my hard-earned money. Or this over 1.5 cashes, and Jared Vanderaa is the one who ends up getting his hand raised here, and we dodge that -195 chalk on the Waldo Cortes-Acosta side. But I'll go over 1.5, but I do think that Waldo ends up getting his hand raised here. What do you think here, Patrick? You think Waldo gets it done, or does Jared save his UFC career with a much-needed win?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be saved. Vandeera's got... Yeah, the Justin Tafa fight, it's hard to believe that was so many fights ago, right? It's gone horribly downhill, partially because Jared Vanderaa is just game to accept all of these opponents, taking Romanov, Arlovski, trying to grapple with Dolidze. Some of these like fight IQ mid-round decisions are just not the greatest for Vanderaa. I like Waldo Acosta. Like you said, he's a very big guy and he seems to be more of the natural heavyweight out of the two. I know Vanderaa is a tall guy and it would be hard for him to make that 205 cut, but yeah, Waldo is a big boy, and he's got some power that I like early and late. You see a couple of round 3 finishes from Acosta, at least that one that was before the Contender Series, where even if he's fatigued, he can work through that fatigue very well. I don't see that same hand speed from Vanderaa later in the fight. In a round 3, Vanderaa is open to getting a hit, even from Chase Sherman, who seems to have 6 minutes of cardio, was able to get a round 3 knockout on Vanderaa and piece him up. That's like the last thing that I want to see from somebody is they're getting finished in round 3 by Chase Sherman. I think the plus 150 for Acosta by knockout is something to look at here. The late round props for knockout for Acosta are good here. And, on paper, the only thing that Vanderaa got left, right, is his BJJ credentials, but he never seems to use it. So like you, I think there's going to be a lot of cage pushing, some clinch matches there, which I've seen Waldo. Which fight was that? The one against Thomas Peterson. He was losing some of those clinch battles, getting taken down quite a bit. Luckily, that's not Jared Vandeera's MO, so I don't see it happening. And even still, Waldo Cortes-Acosta was able to get back to his feet pretty urgently. Never accepted bottom position and got the late knockout there. So give me Acosta. I think he does finish this fight, but again, if Vanderaa is able to stay defensively sound in round 3 in this fight, this could go to decision. Either way, I think your over 1.5 is a great play. As we've seen, Jared Vanderaa, 5 out of his 6 fights so far have been over 1.5, even at heavyweight. So give me Acosta. I'm pretty confident in him.
Yeah, I hope he gets his hand raised as well. And of note, something to touch on here for Vanderaa, training at King's MMA for this training camp. So maybe trying to make that late career push once again, try to save his UFC career. Let's see if this change gets it done for him. Unfortunately,
also a note on Vanderaa. Also a note for Vanderaa, he shaved the mustache off, so no more creepy mustache for Vanderaa. We saw that at the weigh-in. So
is that a positive or a negative?
If you're a Vanderaa backer, that's a positive, I think.
There we go. I love it. All right, let's get to this next matchup. It is the co-main event, which takes place in the welterweight division. We got Tim Dirty Bird Means coming in as a plus 160 dog, going up against Max Payne Griffin, who comes in as a minus 190 favorite. I'm going to let you kick this one off, Patrick. What do you think here between these two welterweights?
Max Griffin is actually one of my more confident picks this week, and I do like him to finish this fight. Some of the inside the distance, even the scorecards, no action for Max Griffin. I do like. I've seen that. I think I saw that somewhere around like minus 190 or so for, if it goes to scorecards and, it's a close, gritty match where Tim Means got some dirty boxing going. He was able to, give a veteran lesson to Max Griffin, make it closer. You get your money back. But if Max Griffin exploits the old man, sort of failing durability of Tim Means that we've seen, then you can cash that at minus 190, not too far off of the money line. So I like that play. But Max Griffin, I just think is going to be more complete here. This is a very big step down in competition from what he just faced in Neil Magny. And he was close to winning that fight. You see power in the hands of Max Griffin, who doesn't have a whole lot of finishes, but, knocked down Neil Magny in the first round of that fight. Almost got him out of there, and then made it very close. And he was able to show that he's defensively sound against the skill set of Tim Means. He was able to circle off of the cage at times from Neil Magny. Ultimately, Magny did have some back control time and was able to edge out a close decision that way. I just don't see Tim Means as able to do that anymore. Tim Means is a very free-flowing, good combinations with his hands, some unorthodox striking that comes from weird angles. But he used to tout his toughness as a way to win these fights. You see him getting club and subs now a couple of times and just getting hurt on the feet. I think Tim Means would have to really close the distance, clinch up, and work dirty boxing for the majority of this fight to win. I don't see it happening. I think Max Griffin's able to, probably put a beat down on him, maybe even in the first round. So give me Max Griffin, one of my more confident picks of this fight card.
Yeah, similar to Andre Arlovski, whenever I see a decent plus number beside Tim Means' name, my eyes brighten up a little bit.
He can make it close.
Yeah, he could definitely make it close. Like we saw in the second round of the Carlos Condit fight with Max Griffin, that when guys can establish that combination striking and kind of establish their control of the cage, Max Griffin can falter at some points. But I think you touched on it. I think the best thing about this for Max Griffin is the deteriorating durability of Means, right? Even the speed is really starting to slow down now. You can see guys getting to his chin a lot quicker than they used to. Tim almost used to rely on that durability to get most of his game off in the past, but I think that's very much failing him at this point. And even though Max Griffin is only a year younger than him, it's it's the fight miles, right? Like Max Griffin has been in a couple wars, but Tim Means has been in all the wars, essentially, right? Like this
It's
guy.
so weird that they're not that far apart in age, because it
Yeah,
seems like there's at least 5 years separating them.
exactly. You'd expect Max Griffin to be the much younger guy here, but the guy's been around for a while, maybe just not competing as enough as much as Tim Means has. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the speed, the athleticism, and the power of Max Griffin will likely come through here. Now, that's funny to say because Max Griffin used to be a decision guy. That's what we used to rely on him. But now, 2 out of his last 3 wins have come via finish, and he's really like sitting down on his punches. He's really believing in that power that he holds, and I feel like if he brings that confidence into this matchup, he will find that chin of Tim Means and put him down here. So yeah, I do lean the Griffin side here as well. I haven't made a bet on it. What I'm thinking of taking is the KO line, that currently now sits at plus 250. I don't mind that, man. I really think he can find the chin of Means here, put him down, get a win, get back into the winners circle. Like he was on a 3-fight winning streak prior to that loss to Neil Magny. And that was a close fight. Like he hurt him early. I was big on Neil Magny that night.
Same, yeah.
And
We got away with one there. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Magny probably won, but it was very close. You know,
Way
sometimes
closer.
when these fights are, people forget and they want to cry robbery about certain things, especially last week. But when you really get down to the nitty gritty of how the documents state how to score perceived damage, it is a very subjective thing when it's a split decision. So, just happy to always make it out on the positive side of that one.
Yeah, maybe hindsight, maybe not as good of a bet as we initially thought because of how close the fight played out and the fact that we're taking chalk there. But you know, pre-fight, Neil Magny is always a very tough puzzle for a lot of people to solve. We'll see that next week as well when he takes on Daniel Rodriguez. So we'll see how Rodriguez.
I'm so glad they rebooked that one.
Me too. Absolutely. But yeah, we're both on the Max Griffin side here. Seems like Patrick a little bit more confident than myself, but I still do like the Griffin side here to go out there and get that finish. All right, that is going to bring us right to the main event. But before we do, shout out to all you guys in the chat already. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already, and follow my guy Patrick as well at Combat Addict 1 on Twitter. Also, you can just click the link in the description below and you can go right to his page and hit that follow. So show my guy some love. All right, let's talk about this main event, Patrick, and I'll kick it off since it is obviously my turn. We got a featherweight matchup here. Both guys, the first 2 guys on the scales this morning, like some goddamn professionals, making weight without much issue at all. The line now currently sits at minus 105 for Calvin Kattar, and minus 115 for Arnold Allen. For the sake of the show, let's just call it a pick 'em matchup because this line has been bouncing up and down all week. I remember seeing Calvin Kattar minus 127. I remember seeing Calvin Kattar plus 110. Now I'm seeing minus 110, minus 105. So no matter what side you're picking here, if you feel good enough about it, you're getting a damn good line to try to back your fighter here. And the side that I'm going to be going with is the guy that has the 5-round experience, the guy that has the volume and output advantage, the guy that has the durability advantage as well. I like me some Calvin Kattar in this spot. I think that this is a perfect matchup for him to go out there and bounce back off that close decision loss that he had against Josh Emmett back in June. But it's all because Arnold Allen really just doesn't do much. Like he's just beating most of his opponents. Yes, if you watch his last fight against Daniel Hooker, you'll be like, man, Preet, the fuck you talking about? You just starched a dude in 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes. A guy of Dan Hooker's caliber. But me, even with money on Daniel Hooker that night, and a lot of the other people watching from the outside could see how compromised Dan Hooker was going into that matchup. Of course, the guy will look that way, and Arnold Allen probably looks over at his coaches and be like, we should just rush this guy, right? Like, if we just rush him, put big punches on him, one of them is probably going to drop him. One of them is probably going to compromise him. Let's try to get him out of there. And that's exactly what they're able to do. Go back and watch all the other Arnold Allen fights. He does not come out like that. He does not normally fight like that. That was a one-time exception. I'd be surprised if he tries to do that here against Calvin Kattar, who will likely meet him with some well-timed counters and some good footwork, some nasty elbows as well, just like he caught Jeremy Stevens during I think it was like the first event back from COVID, where we just sliced him up with a nasty elbow. I think this is a great matchup for Kattar. Like, unless his durability has completely diminished, he should be able to eat a couple shots, which are inevitably going to land. But I think that he can keep this in his realm, whether it's, being sound with his defensive grappling or sound with the striking defense where he can just stay on the outside and pick apart Arnold Allen. I'm going Kattar by decision, maybe around 4 or 5 decision if you have access to one of those types of props. I just don't really see what Allen brings to the table that Kattar has to worry about so much. Yeah, he barely fights, and I don't even mean that like his inactivity in terms of stepping into the cage, but even when he fights, like when I was doing the show at Cody last night, the Propping You Up show, he was just going through the statistics of the total significant strikes that Arnold Allen has landed throughout his career. The only anomaly is the Gilbert Melendez fight, but Gilbert Melendez was an old broken man by then, and he outstruck him by nearly 100 significant strikes. But every other fight, he's barely cracking 40 significant strikes, and now he has 2 extra rounds. He might crack 50, Patrick, but still, I think he's going to get outstruck here, but by the far superior striker. Give me Calvin Kattar. Let's fucking go. What are you thinking here?
Not even is it Arnold Allen, not having that much striking output on the metrics, but sometimes he's having to work his way back into the fight, and all of the bulk of those strikes are like in the last part of the fight. Getting some clean, decisive victories over like the Sadiq Yusuf one was very nice, but he's defining the round with these knockdowns. You know what I mean? So he's stealing the round with these big moments. You're going to be hard-pressed to steal a round from Calvin Kattar with a big moment. Obviously, Josh Emmett was able to figure that out in a very close fight. He was able to rally towards the end of some of those rounds, right, and show something to the judges, stamp that seal of approval for the round on their scorecards. But I don't see Arnold Allen with that because Josh Emmett was in the face of Calvin Kattar every step of the way, not giving him room to breathe. I don't see Allen fighting that way. I like Calvin Kattar as well on this spot. I am on him at plus 100 to get even money on a main event spot with – this is going to be his 6th main event spot for Calvin Kattar, his 5th main 5-round fight too. So all of the experience, all of the activity that you touched on, Arnold Allen only fighting like once a year at this point, which, I get it if you're just getting started, you want to train in between, but now it's just getting ridiculous. Like you need to be taking advantage of the prime of your career at featherweight. I like Calvin Kattar's striking in this fight too. Technically, I think he makes better mid-round adjustments. He really does well with like feinting and setting up traps in the middle of his combinations and especially that nice uppercut he can sneak through the guard. I like your 4-5 decision. Did you mention that one? That's around plus 175, plus 200. I like that. I like the overs in this fight, the alternate overs of over 2.5, over 3.5. I think those do hit as well. And then we'll see what Arnold Allen's made of with his cardio as well. I think there's nothing to indicate he shouldn't be okay, but if he has to answer all of the strikes that Calvin Kattar is going to throw, man, he's going to set a new high score of significant strikes. And then what does his cardio look like? So I have Kattar parlayed with the very first fight of the night, Christian Rodriguez, and then that plus 100 on Calvin Kattar for like plus 156 odds. That's my first parlay of the night. And I'm actually going kind of parlay heavy on this card, to be honest with you. I didn't want a whole lot of action, even though we're giving out some very good information here and some confident leans. I'm going to, take the sketchy card and get even sketchier with it. I've parlayed a lot of these spots together, and we'll just have some fun with this card. So Calvin Kattar and Christian Rodriguez, that is my leading parlay. So let's do it.
I love it. And there you guys go. We got the full card breakdown for UFC Vegas 63. We'll roll right into our lock of the night plays or our most confident plays on the card. I'm not sure if Patrick wants to go with that parlay to share for his main one. I'll kick it off here. I'm going to go with Jin Young Park straight up. I got minus 225. I went 5 units deep. I think he's just a far superior fighter against Joseph Holmes. Of course, Joseph has early finishing upside, but outside of that, I think we'll see Park survive that, drag this into deep waters, and possibly finish Holmes in the second, maybe early third round as well. Patrick, what would you give as your most confident play on the card for the viewers here?
Yeah, that's the one. I think it's that main event spot parlayed with Christian Rodriguez. If you just want a single one, I do like the one that we talked about in the co-main event. I like the scorecards equal no action for Max Griffin to get this done inside the distance. If Tim Dirty Bird Means has a veteran lesson up his sleeve and it goes to the scorecards, you get your money back. So I like that play because Max Griffin's durability, has held up pretty good. Only finished one time by Colby Covington a long time ago. TKO stoppage there. So I think Max Griffin holds up in this spot. He looks like the fresher guy, and he either gets this done inside the distance or I don't think he's losing, by finish here.
I like it. All right, Patrick, I'm going to give you the platform one last time. If you want to plug anything for the fans and the viewers to follow you on, to subscribe, to whatever the hell, where can they find you? What do you want to plug? Let them know right now.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, man. Preet. It's been a pleasure to finally talk fights with you, break down a card, and hopefully we'll do it again in the future. I got to have you on my channel. So,
Let's go.
everybody watching, my name is Patrick. I run a YouTube called Addicted2Combat. Search it up. Give me a follow. We were talking backstage before the fights. I've been a lifelong fan of this sport. This is all I watch. I don't know the rules to any other sport besides mixed martial arts and combat sports, quite literally. So, takes up 100% of my time. I break down fights every week and do a weekly live stream on Wednesdays. And you can follow me on Twitter at Combat Addict1. Let's talk some fights.
There you guys go. And don't forget, the 2 in Addicted to Combat is the number 2, not TO. So don't get it twisted with something else and go follow somebody else. Make sure you guys follow my guy, Patrick. Patrick, it was a pleasure to have you on,
Appreciate
my friend.
you.
Great chemistry. We were nice and efficient with the fights as well. I always love that as well. And then, yes, whenever you want to throw me onto your channel, just shoot up the lock signal. I'll be sure to answer that. And we can jump on your show as well. On behalf of myself and Patrick, we appreciate you guys hanging with us on this Friday afternoon. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Follow my guy Patrick on Twitter as well. I will be back tomorrow for the Fight Day live chat at 1 p.m. Eastern right here, right on this channel. So make sure you guys come through and hit me with any of your last minute questions, comments, or concerns in regards to the fights. I'll also drop my totals parlay for you guys as well that night or on that stream. So make sure you guys come through for that. And otherwise, good luck on all your bets. And I'll see you again next week as we break down Marina Rodriguez against Amanda Lemos in the UFC Vegas 64 headliner. Ooh, excuse me, as well as the rest of the fights on that card as well. All right, good luck on your bets, folks. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Cheers.